I had this doll for quite a while now. It was a beautiful porcelain doll, you know. The way that most porcelain dolls look like. I was just like that. Wavy, long blonde toes, black hair, black eyes, a beautiful pink and red dress. With a typical head, I think that's supposed to be with an it. It was just like that. Wavy, long blonde curls, black eyes, a beautiful pink and red dress, with a typical headband with lace around the edges. It was a doll I received from my mother at an early age. At that age, I always thought it was such a pretty doll, a perfect look. My grandmother had almost 50 dolls of that kind, all of them beautiful, perfect porcelain dolls. But this one in particular, the blonde with the red dress, I will always remember, because this is the one that will be the death of me. I lived alone for quite a while. I had just gotten into college, seeing my whole life lay in front of me. All I had to do was just go and pick out what I wanted. Easy as that, I was aiming for psychology, a subject I had started to respect and enjoy the last 2 years. Seeing as my mother was a nurse and my dad was a therapist, it was an obvious choice for me, but moving so far away from my friends and family wasn't as easy as I thought. Sure, my roommate was a nice person, but maybe not as chatty as I hoped to. I wasn't a person to just sit quiet in my room and never speak until I had to. I enjoyed getting out, seeing friends, but I didn't have any time or friends around. No one would talk to me unless I wanted help from my teacher in school or my roommate had forgotten to buy milk. It was lonely, to say the least. Homework was the only thing to keep me distracted from feeling lonely. I didn't have time to try to even make friends. Friends was a silly thing after all. I didn't have time to go and party. Maybe find somebody. It was worthless either way. And my dad would skin me alive if I didn't keep my focus on the schoolwork. The only thing I brought from home to remind me of my family was that doll. The girlish toy was displayed on the desk in front of my bed, smiling against me when I needed someone to talk to or just watch over me as I slept. It was me and that doll the whole time. That fucking ugly doll. As time went on, I started to pull myself more and more away from any human contact as possible. The schoolwork was getting over my head, and regret of going here began filling my head, but I couldn't quit now and go home. Not after my parents had paid everything for my college and car to get here. I just had to stay and make the best out of it. I really tried hard, but with each day and the hatred of other people took the hold of me. I would need hours alone, just sitting in my room to cool off. It was getting harder to get out each day. My roommate despised me, I could tell, but I didn't blame her. I was acting like a jerk. I refused to take my share of the daily chores, wiping the floors, taking out the trash, but I couldn't do it. I was being pulled into a dark hole, and with all the loneliness came the paranoia. At first I accepted being lonely, but it had reached that point where I started to realize my dumb behavior trying to reach out to people among to tell them I wasn't feeling alright. There was only stress and nobody had time to talk to a stupid college student. It was only the nerves I hoped it was. I locked myself in my room. I couldn't go out anymore. I had to send in to my teachers and cancel my classes day after day. But it didn't matter. They didn't send anything in search for me. So I kept spinning in my room, week out and week in. It was an evil circle I couldn't get out of. When it happened, my room had been my cage. I wouldn't eat. I couldn't. It even reached that point. My roommate would come and knock on my door to see everything was okay, but I didn't open up. I just yelled back in reply that she would go away. She did. She didn't care enough to make a second attempt. She never knocked on my door again. It was just me. And my doll watching over me and every breath I took. Then there was that night. This night, actually. It was a night I was so used to spending alone. I didn't even bother to trying to turn on the lights as I stepped up from the bed and pulled on a sweater and a pair of untied Converse before I made my way out of the room. In so many days, I needed fresh air and my windows were broken. Unable to open it up, it was in the middle of the night. Maybe even morning. It was still dark outside, so I just assumed it was night even though I hadn't checked the time yet. Couldn't care less. Anyway, it was a pain in the ass to come out of the room, to not wake my stupid roommate up. All I needed was to get out for a minute or two to get us some air. Maybe go out and buy some cigarettes. I had promised myself to stop smoking lately. That was the only thing I had been doing, smoking. I only snuck out late last night to go get me some new cigs. It was a bad thing. I knew, but it was the only thing to keep me going and kept me awake and safe. But that particular night, there was something strange. Someone had unlocked the gate out to the street. It hadn't happened before, and I thought the landlord held a hard hand to keep it locked at all times. Didn't bother. I just pushed the little red box out of the pocket and started smoking. The good thing about that night was that no one was around. No one to annoy me with their stupid voices. It was quiet. Maybe just a car driving by, but then no more than that. It was peaceful. A few minutes later, after gaining some cold on my warm skin, some smoke inside my lungs, I decided to go back and maybe try to watch some television. Nothing good at night, but it was always worth a try. I stepped back into the building and shrugged the last bit of unwanted cold off, making myself ready to sneak back into my room. But as soon as I came to the staircase, there was something in the way, or someone. Someone was standing in the stairs. I had to admit, it did scare me to some point, but a second later I was back in my not give a single fuck state and tried to walk up the stairs without confronting the person in my way. At first I thought it was my roommate, but the shadow of the person was too manly, too big to be the petite roommate that I knew. I tried to pass the odd stranger and just slightly bumped my elbow into his. But he didn't move or speak. He just stood there. It was creeping me out. The scenario was too freaky, but of course there was other students in the apartment building just waiting to scare the shit out of some other poor first-year students. But I wasn't the one to be fooled. But I didn't stop until I heard a sound. It was one of those sounds where it would just cause your concentration to break shut. It was distracting, scarring, unnerving. I couldn't continue on, so I just froze in position and tried to turn around to face him. At first, there was a cracking sound, the sound that had startled me. Then there was sobbing, a young man's voice of sobbing. But it wasn't human. Yeah, maybe to some degree. But the voice was pitching up, like it was breaking through a sad, static television stream. I stood only a few steps away from the man in the saddle. I wanted to break away from my sudden frozen state of mind, but I couldn't. I was stuck. And my feet had been nailed to the stairs. I was trying to speak, but he spoke before I had the chance to. It's getting clearer to see now. Since spending more time in the darkness helped the vision to clear up. He was wearing some kind of jacket, black, everything black, a sewed cap with strings falling out of a hole in the back, also black. His hair was torn but long, like he hadn't been able to cut it for a while or showered it. His appearance was etching inside of my mind, but his voice appeared like a dagger in my ears. When he spoke, he made off another static noise, like a broken radio. But he spoke in words trying to calm me down. But I was already too scared to try to bring myself to relax. You're alone here, aren't you? I swallowed hard. The thought of somebody spying on me this entire time was filling my head like urging vomit. Feeling disgusted by this man and voice, I just shook my head, no response. I couldn't give him a reply. I shouldn't have. Maybe it had changed this whole situation for the better. Maybe I hadn't been here now, scared for my life, but I was. And I knew he knew that as well. But when I didn't give him the answer he expected, he turned to me. His sight was one of the most terrifying yet fascinating faces I had ever seen. He wasn't scarred or wounded in any way to make me feel uncomfortable by his appearance, but his eyes and his mouth, there was this weird glow, a golden orange glow. It filled both his eyeballs and mouth, his teeth shining through in a bright yellow light. It glowed in the dark, and it casted a light across us. On the stairs, the floor, on me, and I could see his smirk on his grey painted face. That was when I snapped. It wasn't human, so I had to get away from here. I broke through the invisible bonds and threw myself up the stairs, running up quickly as my untied shoes slammed against the wooden floor. I fled to my room without any second thought. Hopefully my roommate that I have been ignoring for so many weeks would hear me and call the police. I closed the door after me, and I locked the door. My stumbling feet bring me across the desk, knocking my precious family door down on the floor. The porcelain broke. I gasped in panic, trying to recollect myself and my thoughts. There was no noise. After I had slammed the door to my room, no roommate was coming after me. No weird glowing man in the stairwell, just me and my broken doll laying on the floor. I tried to scream or cry, call for any help at all. It wasn't real. I'd become too crazy, insane, after spending so many months of just being alone. This is what had happened. I was laying on the floor, broken and shattered in pieces. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor, pacing back and forth, by crawling the best I could. The cigarette from before now just sat like a needle in my throat. I was thirsty, but I couldn't move out of the kitchen to drink anything. Maybe he was there, still waiting for me to come out, but I wasn't moving out of my spot. I never did. By an hour of complete silence in the room, I began to calm down and stand up to try and calm myself down. There was still that feeling of being watched, and I knew that feeling too well. The feeling of being paranoid and lonely all came to this breakdown. Once I remembered the door being broken, I immediately started to try to patch it together. It was the only thing I had in focus, my best friend, the doll. I managed to get a needle and thread into the room and some glue to get the doll back to its former glory, but it wasn't easy. No matter how hard I tried, the doll would just fall back apart. It became an endless attempt of nothing. I tried again and again, but it would fall in pieces, my only friend. I became too tired of the sudden panicking and fixing of the door. I just passed out on my bed. But I curled up together in a ball with the blanket over my head, somehow imagining the no monster under my bed would reach me now. All I wanted was to sleep. I knew that he would come back. This time was different. However, this time I welcomed it. I was tired of running all the time. I would rather die in my sleep than face another day being lonely again. And now with my only friend broken, what was I supposed to do? It was tiring, the way he approached me this time. It was like I was asleep, but still, I could control my body like a lucid dream. I would dare to step into another day. Tonight it would end just like I had been afraid that it would. I didn't care anymore. Didn't bother. I just wanted to have a long sleep and never wake up, never face loneliness again. He came back to me with his hands guiding me up from bed. He wrapped his mind around mine as I tried to see, but the only thing I could see was his grey hands holding mine tight. But suddenly there was a sensation I wasn't sure I could feel of floating. Unlike a puppet, he cut 2 open cuts on my wrist, but it wasn't across. More like it was from the center of my arm and down. He reached for something, muscle, something to peel out and hang on to. The bad thing was I allowed him to do it. The struggle had become too much to bear with. With the long pieces of muscles hanging out of the cuts of my wrists, I started to pull at them. I pulled at them like he wanted to control my body and arms. How it all came together in reaction to my nerve system and skeleton. He knew how it worked. Yet there was no pain that filled my heart or body, just another piece of my mind, staying at ease again. It was a wonderful feeling. It was like nothing mattered. It was like nothing else mattered. And as he continued to cut me open, he began singing. They called me the Puppeteer. The Puppeteer. My fingers are thin and my hands are stained with my tears. For puppets I steer my strings and dreams. Now I could see him clearer. The man who I just hated with all my might, I now come to finish off to my endless suffering. Maybe it had been who had forced me into thinking this. Maybe he was the one to blame for everything I had done to myself. Was this all in my head or was it real? They called me the Puppeteer. I had no friends like you, for nobody saw the value of my friendship, but in the end they became my friends. With my strings and dreams, it only took me a minute to lose every sense of my touch. My nerve system had been crushed under the hand of this man, this thing, breaking every bone in my body. I could feel him twisting my ribs and twisting my rib bones, all for it to make it easier to turn him into what he saw me fitting to be. It was like the long pieces of torn muscles or strings, controlling my limbs and my head feeling from side to side. All I could see was his smile, so I smiled back. He called me the Puppeteer, my body dark and my eyes hunger of gold. In my eyes no one is alone. In my strings and dreams you shall be my friend too. The last feeling I could feel was his hand tugging around my neck, then snap. At first I was afraid to see death approaching me this way. I had never thought of it this way. I would have said no and refused if I could have decided it all on my own, but didn't. I said yes. With broken neck, death was just half a second away. There was nothing but a golden smile and his warm hands holding my strings up as my body fell. Early the other morning, my roommate found me dead. I had committed suicide by hanging myself in the fan of in the ceiling, assuring my death. I had jumped from my bed. Besides me was the door. The broken porcelain door with the red dress and lovely blonde hair. You might be wondering how I'm writing this to you right now, or how I found a way to contact you. I found it necessary to write down my story before I pass on. This is my legacy. This is what I'm leaving behind. I could stand the loneliness anymore. I couldn't stand facing the problems on my own. It took so long, too long. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm so sorry.